Hello and welcome to Retrostat, the weekly IPL roundup from Co-Learning Lounge. My name is Natalia Agarwal, host of the show, and as a lot of you know, we have been working on on AI model to predict team fantasy league contest. So Retrostat is a weekly feature where we look at stats that matter from the uh, for complete week gone by and we retrospect on the same. So I'm here today with my teammates Avisait, Ajay Krishna, and Dhruv Patwari. By the time you know all three of them as well, we have met before. So before we proceed any further, thanks to one and all who have shown interest and have like, commented, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if not done already, then do so now and join our Fantasy League community. Link is in the description below. So thanks to all for your suggestions and feedbacks and believing in us. We have seen good and bad days both during these eight matches. As rightly said, nothing is perfect. So is the case here also. So please stay with us and your suggestions and feedback are welcome. Do help us know how we can improve or what is going good so that it can definitely boost up our morale also. So first, I would like to mention that this model is data driven, as we have already always said. This is a data driven model along with domain knowledge and has been created to predict fantasy level along with therefore alternative choices. So this has been done in order to maximize the winning probability for people who are playing Dream 11 Fantasy League this season. Selection of captain and vice captain, that it is not actually the selection, it is the choice that we are giving you, and it is definitely based on a gut feeling because our model is not selecting any captain or vice captain. As since many of our viewers have requested us to tell who would be the captain or vice captain choice. So that's why we started this. But this is not data driven. This is more of gut feeling driven. Only captain and vice captain selection. Best player selection is definitely data driven. It is not gut feeling driven. Anyhow, this is initial phase and we are retraining our model to improve in all aspects. So let's move to our team and understand how data is a deciding factor here and what went well, what didn't went well. So we'll talk all about that. So let's start to one by one and today what we would be discussing more of is first section would be covering up how our model is working, what are the parameters that we are considering, a sneak peek into our model. Then we would be sharing how has been the performance of our team selected in the past eight matches and what could be improved. Along with that, we would be updating you on our Kaggle competition for this IPL data post IPL season, and then floor would be open for live Q&A session. So moving to you guys, thanks Avi, Ajay, and Dhruv for joining in. And so I would like to get a quick, uh, a precise moment of the week from your perspective also. So first, starting with you, Avi. So which would be the moment that you would like to tell us or share with us? Avi, I think you're on mute.
What exactly do you mean by like a precise moment? Uh,
So, Miss, with our selection, that which moment stood out with you guys? Means like
I think
when we are
definitely,
selecting the teams. Yeah, go
uh,
ahead.
definitely choosing KL Rahul as like unanimously selecting him as the keeper batsman in our team, and then uh, going ahead with him as the captain because that ended up being not only just a data driven selection but also something that turned out to be but probably will go down as the highest fantasy points scored in any game by any player in this IPL. So I think that would also, along with that, uh, keeping Samson as our captain and like going ahead with him because he hasn't necessarily been so consistent, but our data showed that he probably will score. And he ended up being the standout performer of the game, also taking a few catches here and there. So both of these instances, which Also happened to be one of our pro tips later on, selecting keeper batsmen in the team because they get you free points in the form of catches.
Great, great. Thanks, Avi. So, Ajay, what been the moment of the week for you, as per our team is considered?
I
Selection
think
for the
I
team is
think I was
yeah,
personally, yeah. I think I was personally, I think surprised, not really surprised, but then when the data suggested that Sam Curran is one of the key people to watch out for. Initially, I was not very sure of how that would turn out, but then we unanimously or not unanimously, I mean, it was a majority decision, but we went ahead with Sam Curran as captain in our vice captain in our Rajasthan Chennai game. I think that was one decision that turned out to be a really good one, especially with him scoring 15-20 with the bat and then uh, taking 3 wickets. So I think that was a good decision.
great, great. What about you, Dhruv?
Because it was not instinctive. It was not something that would instinctively strike many people. So yeah.
Great,
Yeah, Sam Curran was a good choice, and it was data driven as well. So for me, the best one would be Rahul Tewatia. I think that's the name, Rahul Tewatia, if I'm not wrong. Picking him in our team was really shocking. Like we weren't sure how that guy would perform, how that player would perform, but he rated really highly in our model, and picking him into our team was an X factor call, and we're glad we did that.
great, great. So, yeah, all these three moments, I think, so would be a moment for our viewers as well, because selecting Tevatia or making Samson as a vice captain or Sam Curran as a vice captain has been really something that made our team stand out or to gain more points. So, let's discuss further about the model. And so my first question is to you, Ajay. What data-based factors are being considered in the model to arrive at fantasy 15 players that we have been selecting over for these 8 matches?
Okay. So what we do is we look at it in two different ways. One way of looking at it is how much impact the player is capable of giving. So an all-rounder can impact your game twice. So yeah, or an opening batsman has 220 balls to face. So things like that. So one we consider is the capability to make impact, and the second is we see how. So okay, so there may be bowlers who bowl at the death and may get some free wickets, as some people call it. They say, okay, the wickets at the death don't really count because people are slogging, and they're just getting wickets without they may not necessarily be the best bowler on that day, but they may get a lot uh, more wickets than the best bowler on that day. So things like that. So that is somewhere where impact doesn't matter, because you whether you get the best batsman out or the worst batsman out, or like your number 11 out, it doesn't matter because both wickets are worth 25 points in your fantasy points. So we look at that. We look at the nuances of the fantasy point system, and we see how who's more likely to get you points. They may not be the most impactful player of the game, but they may get you more points. So I think these are the two approaches that we follow to get to our fantasy 15. Other than that, involves a lot of other data driven factors like your traditional average strike rate, things like that, to something like this latest parameter that we came up with, that is what is the probability of a player scoring a 50 in the game after he scored a 50 in the previous game. So things like that.
Okay, so definitely it is all about the stats that we are getting into. It's not just one part of the stats, different parameters we are considering over here to check that how players are performing or which player to choose over which one. On the same lines, post selection of this 15 players, how we are selecting fantasy 11 players? What are the driving factors for making this decision, leaving out four and then selecting 11 players?
Yes. So when we get our 15 players, that does not uh, take into consideration the credits available for each player. So there are chances where you have, let's say, Kohli, De Villiers, Warner, Bairstow, and a few more people, and probably a Russell as well in our top 15. Like that's not possible in a game, but yeah, you might have high credit players in the top 15, but you obviously cannot have all of them in the team because that does not leave you with enough credits. So that is how. So first we try to pick a. So we get a list of like potential players in the order of their selection. So if he's our first pick player, and if we cannot get our first player, then we get our second pick player. So we go down the list, and we usually get a team with the second best player, if not the first. We try to make the team with the first preference players. Let's say we get 8 or 9 first preference players, and then we have to fill our team with the second preference players just to accommodate them in the credit system. So that is one way. That is one reason why we have to leave out 4 players. And the other one could be that, let's say, uh, in the last game the player hasn't done well, or in the last 2 games the player didn't do well. So our model actually considers the performance in the past 3 games. So the last 2 games wasn't that well. So that won't be able. The model won't be able to consider that. So trying to interfere in the decision making process is one way of doing that as well. So if let's say wait, okay, I'm not able to think of a player, but let's say he got out on a duck in 2 consecutive games, and the third game you might think he'll do well or he might not do well. So you have to make a call over there, see to leave him out of the 11 or not. So that is how we pick our 11.
So it is sort of that recent form is definitely playing a role over here, whether the player is doing well or not. But right now we are not capturing that recent form that much since it has been just 2 games for each team, or I would say that not even exactly 2 games for each team.
Yes. Yes.
Fair enough. So, my next question is to you. Since there's so much uncertainty between in this playing 11 this time, we even don't know whether the player that we are selecting is going to play in the match or not. We have seen this thing, and but there's a lot of variation. So, how is it impacting our prediction initially and then final fantasy 11 prediction?
Right. So definitely because of the entire quarantine situation, we haven't had a lot of players being available for the first few matches. Uh, I think that's more or less solved right now. So I don't think it's going to impact us much. I mean, we practically going into every game knowing which 4 foreigners are going to play it, and uh, the Indian squad is more or less always similar across the matches until and unless someone gets injured. But the way we're handling it right now is there's not a lot of things separating the 3 stadiums, but given the boundary line differences, Sharjah being a six-hitter's dream, and a couple of these factors do help us understand that there's a couple of games where if I were the captain, I probably wouldn't bowl a spinner in the power play, or and given that it's a more aggressive ground situation. I'm bound to get a few wickets in the power play itself. Even especially if the team has a better batting depth, they would probably want to make use of the power play less cautiously than a team which does not have a very strong batting core would. So I probably know that I'll get a few wickets in the power play, and if that's going to happen, I'm going to definitely take in my team a few of those bowlers who are going to play in the power play. So that does help a power play or the death overs, as Ajay said. So definitely that takes a big contribution in this account. And then obviously when the toss happens, we get to know about the team. We get to know about who's batting first and who's bowling first, and that is also a very underrated factor because, for example, a team like Delhi Capitals does not have very does not have a big batting name in the lineup as such. So I don't really expect. I don't think anybody expects them to go ahead and like make a huge total which they will be able to defend, because again they have a great bowling lineup, so they don't really need a good batting score to defend. But if they're chasing, I'm very sure that they'll be able to chase really well. So I wouldn't bank on them to get a 180 plus 190 plus score 3 out of 5 times they bat first. But I definitely bank on them to chase that particular score if they are, because they do have players who can chase that score. I'm really not sure if they have players who can make that score in the first innings itself. So number one being who's batting first, who's bowling first, that makes the decision. And going by the previous games, teams generally are going by the winning combination, so they're not really dropping foreign players if they perform. If they don't really perform well, because everyone's understanding the situation at hand. They haven't had a lot of practice. They haven't had a lot of game time except the English and Australian players. So these few factors, I think more or less in the coming weeks, it won't really be of much concern to us.
So, means initially, yeah, our model was not able to handle this variation, that too much of variation, right? We can say this thing that it was not adaptive to that much variation. Might be that it would be settling down, as we said. This was the initial phase, right? Okay, great. So, Dhruv, in yesterday's match, it was anticipated that Braystraw will be keeping for SRH and has been, since he has been in good form and is with his bat in the previous match as well. And I believe that was the reason for our model to rate him high and make him part of Fantasy 11. Also, this is how we decided based on a gut feeling that he should be the captain, but then a situation went totally in a topsy-turvy way here. Whatever we decided, it didn't go that way, and he just scored 10 points in our team. So, how our model is able to handle this uncertainty? Do we have any factor to handle this part?
So if a player is playing a game and not keeping, that is something that is out of our control. So it depends on the team and the management, right? So if let's say there are three, four keepers and you're sure that Pesto has been keeping for 2 games for the he's been keeping for SRS for a very long time, and adding Ridhiman Saha, we actually thought that he won't be keeping and Pesto will be keeping in place of him, but that didn't happen. And as far as him scoring less runs is concerned, that is more to do with like his last game was really well, and according to our model, it predicted that it was a 30 or 40 run. Uh, he might be a 30 or 40 run bank in this game as well, but that didn't happen. But yeah, so those are some things that are out of your control. You really can't control that. Other than that, like most of the players, so they're relatively consistent. I think Besto will. I think taking Besto's example, that was the that was our that was not our best decision, but we can obviously bounce back from that once we have enough data of the 2020 games and how he's been doing.
Yeah, like he's played like about 17, 18 IPL games till now, and there have only been 2 occasions where he's scored less than 30 runs. So when you see that he scored about around a 40, 50 runs in all the 16 out of 18 games he's played, you're bound to assume that he will be consistent. That's completely out of our hand if he ends up getting bowled by, or getting out to a brilliant delivery. But I mean, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. Means that's a small part of the data that we are having, and it will eventually increase as the match progresses or as the game progresses. I would say. Yeah, so we have seen our models excellently perform excellently also. Like in the first match of Rajasthan Royals, where picking up Tevatia was really a good decision, and we got some really cool feedbacks also regarding the same. What is your take on this? Why is it so that few predictions are working and few aren't working? So we have seen few matches didn't go well in terms of prediction. Why is it so?
Yeah, so with respect to Tevatia, I think it also came down to the number of choices because we didn't really see uh, that type of a bowler in the squad. Rajasthan does not have a depth with respect to the type of players they play. So it was more or less of okay, he's playing for the first time and we don't really have any uh, alternative to him, so he's probably going to be picked. And as my notion generally goes, when you're debuting in a league like the IPL, you are at the peak of your domestic or T20 form. So when you're going in with that form, you're bound to perform. And bowlers especially, because getting even a couple of wickets doesn't matter what sort of wickets those are. If you just get a couple of wickets, you're already up to 50 points. And to equate that sort of a performance, a batsman needs to score about 45-50 runs. So it definitely is easier for the bowlers to get points in Dream 11. And I think that is what worked out for us. So also, given that in the past few games, slower bowlers had been getting wickets at a better rate than pacers had been. So I think that also contributed.
Yeah, definitely. So, regarding this, so I think so. We have a comment from Ahan. I think I would disagree that Besto not keeping in unpredictable situation. If Saha plays, he will keep Besto much better outfielder compared to Saha. Any one of you would like to take up this question
Okay.
or this comment?
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Am I clear? Am I audible first?
Yeah, just
You're a
there
little.
is sort of disturbance. Your voice is breaking up in a while, in between.
Okay, I'll take this question for
Oh,
now. So
okay. Yeah.
yeah, okay. So I definitely agreed. Bairstow is a great fielder compared to Saha, especially given that Saha is also getting old now. The thing is that in a T20 game, you don't really expect wicket keeping changes happening at this rate because if I'm not wrong, Bairstow does keep for England in the T20 lineup, even though they have Joss Butler, who is their regular ODI keeper and their Test keeper. So it is kind of understood that you will go in with your prime player who you have as a keeper. You purchased as a keeper batsman who kept for you in the last IPL as well. But then again, I mean, you can't really predict these situations. We did expect him to keep. Now, I think if Saha does end up keeping in the next couple of games, we might just end up going with Saha if we have to choose a keeper batsman. And then again, Warner might just end up giving the gloves to Bairstow. So that's something we can't really predict. But then, yeah, it's also understandable because you don't want to tire out your peak player, and if SRH is uh, bowling first, then even and you know that Bairstow is going to open the innings. So I would understand the decision in the hot conditions. You would want a player who is suited to those conditions to uh, have that sort of a position and then not get tired before they have to open the batting. So yeah, I think it's a fair understanding.
Okay. Fair enough. So, Ajay, my next question is to you. For CSK versus Kings 11 Punjab, we have seen that even Captain Dhoni was not able to predict pitch condition precisely. Thus, they lost the game, although they won the toss. So, how is pitch or weather condition uncertainty impacting performance of our
Okay. So first of all, with the pitch, as we don't really. So generally, whenever you generally in IPL, what happens is that you play 7 games at home. So you understand that venue well, you understand the dimension, you understand the fielding positions. That is what gives you an advantage. But this year, and you generally have a camp a month before in the same ground, so you understand the venue and the pitch. But this time around, because they've not had a lot of practice at that particular venue in that particular pitch, I think it is understandable that a couple of decisions go wrong with the pitch. Uh, but then again, we know that cricket is a game with a ton of variables, and it's the team that adapts better is the one that wins on that day. So I think that's the way to go about it. I mean, weather will play a role because it's extreme heat out there, and then we've seen that in the same ground at the same and with the same temperature, one day dew is affected and the other day dew does not come into play. So things like that. Cricket is a game with a lot of variables. So yeah, predicting becomes tough like that. So yeah, that would be my
Uh,
look at the weather
on
and the
top
pitch
of that, I
conditions.
think the due factor is being heavily uh, overrated when it comes to like at least T20 cricket. So I don't really think getting the pitch wrong was really what went wrong for CSK in the game. It wasn't a pitch decision which went wrong. There were a lot of other factors which went wrong. So I wouldn't really personally blame the pitch, but I do think that captains need to look at more criterion than just the due factor, which they're giving a lot of weightage to. Ideally, in my opinion, something wrong which they're doing.
So yeah, adding to what Ajay was saying, as we're just playing in three grounds, three venues, so you have different squares for every game. So you might not play a game you might not play two games in the same pitches, two consecutive games. So if one game was, let's say, 120 or 140 game, the other game could be 200 game. So that's what Karthik was saying yesterday as well. So you will need to take the ground as a whole. Uh, you need to take the average of the ground as a whole. You cannot predict what the pitch will do. So considering just the ground averages, it comes down to 150 odd for all the three venues, and usually it's slightly pace friendly, like 51% pace friendly. That's it. So the pace friendly in two venues, and I think Abu Dhabi is more spin friendly. So something like that. So those venues, but it depends on the day and on the pitch that they're playing and how they'll play. So you can't really know before the game starts. So those are the things. Those things are really hard to account for.
Exactly. So, Dhruv, on the similar lines, I have another question for you. It has been seen that many games are anticipated to be wicket-heavy games, but these things are moving. But then things are moving in a different way, right? So, what do you think is important on these lines, or to update? Or I would say, what other input should be considered in our model?
Could you repeat the question? I think you were breaking up. I couldn't listen to the question.
Is it clear now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is though, so we have seen anticipated few games which were wicket heavy, but then we saw that they are moving in a actually the game was moving in a totally different way. So what would you say that which are other important parameters which should be considered in the model to make the performance better or make the prediction better?
Yeah, so let's take yesterday's game for example. Almost every one of us unanimously thought that it would be a very wicket-heavy game, but it came out to be only 6 wickets that fell in the game. So those are the things that are out of our hand, and also that comes down to which pitch they're playing on. So if the pitch was really slow and the batsman didn't really want to capitalize, like didn't really want to lose a lot of wickets. Instead, they focused on capitalizing, like Saha's innings. Saha's innings was really slow, and no one would have thought he'd play that slowly. Given that in the past few seasons, he's done really well with the power play. He has a strike rate of I think 170, 180. So given him playing such an innings was really unexpected. But it comes down to which pitch they were playing on and the attack they're facing. Uh, we could consider one factor wherein you could take an opposition and the average wickets the opposition has taken. So, for example, Kolkata has taken the least number of wickets. Kolkata took the least number of wickets in the entire season last year. So that is one factor that could be considered. But we thought of not considering that because the players are relatively different. So you have new players coming in like Nagarkoti, Mabi, and Cummins who have not played the last season. So those are the things that could be the differentiating factor. Uh, and also because they are playing in UAE, So you don't really have that data on how many wickets that will fall in the game. So that's something uh, that is hard to account for, but we should be able to account uh, as and when more matches are played.
Correct. So definitely, as we are seeing that things will improve after we have a sufficient amount of matches played by all the teams as well as for the players also, because this is a player-based decision, not just a team-based decision. Okay, so our viewers and community members, you know of, have been suggesting to create multiple teams based on league type, mega league, or smaller leagues and all that, and predict a variation of captain and vice captain. What is your take on that? Because since we said captain and vice captain are not data driven, it is more on gut feeling. But then how we can deal with that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a misnomer that you can win a mega league based on a certain sort of a prediction because, all right, the government of India
Abhi, I
says
think your
the
voice
game
is
of
very
cricket
low.
is
Yeah,
actually
Avi, your voice is coming very low.
is it fine now?
No,
Hello,
no, it's still low.
does someone else? Yeah, okay. Is it okay now? Hello,
Not, no, 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 way, not much.
hello, hello.
It still seems
You want to go
low.
again?
Yeah, I'll
It
take it.
still seems
If
low.
it's I'll
Yeah, yeah, Ajay, you can take this question.
Uh, yeah. So what we are trying to do is our first goal is that out of the 15 we pick, say at least out of the 15 we pick, 9 should be the dream team players. Now, out of that, you have to the captain vice captain choice generally comes down to a little bit of luck along with your interpretation of how well the player is doing and different matchups that will come up. So if you think about it, a difference between your mega league and your smaller leagues is that for your smaller league, you will generally go with a safer team. So you will not pick a very, so you will try to not pick someone who's extremely inconsistent. Says for the lack of a better example, Maxwell. Maxwell will come off once in 5 games, but then for a mega league, you will pick him every time and make him your captain because you know what he's capable of. But for a smaller league, you may pick him or you may not. You may not even pick him in your level. So things like that. So those are the little nuances that go into picking different teams. But when it comes to picking teams using our model, what we try to do is we try to give you the best 15. Best 15 in the sense that these are the players who are most likely to give you more points than the rest. So if out of these people we are able, out of the 15 we're able to give you 9, 10 people, I think that is beyond expectation. And I think if you get to a point where you can pick 7 of your dream team players and you pick 2 of the top 4 performing players on that day, captain and vice captain, you will win most leagues. So yeah, that's the general understanding of that with respect to our model.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yes, yes, Avi, clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to add to that, it's a misnomer, assuming that you can win a mega league just by skill. Most of the people who come first, or in the top 1% or even the top 5% of the league, are people who probably would have lost all the previous games had they played it. It does not matter when you're competing with like 40-45 lakh people. It just comes down to the fact that you, by chance, you ended up selecting 10 of the 11 dream team players, and you ended up selecting the best performing player as captain and the second best performing player as your vice captain. Now, that's not something you can decide. That's always going to come down to luck. A few days ago, one of my teams, I just had the captain and vice captain swapped compared to the person who came third on the list, and my ranking was about, I think, 950. So it basically means that the top 1,000 players in that specific league had the exact same team. They just had a different captain and vice captain setup. So you cannot win a mega league by skill. It is going to be a gamble. Always has been a gamble. So what we are trying to do here is to ensure that you get like a decent team, your team always ends up in the top 20% unless like something goes really haywire. So you cannot we're doing the best we can when it comes to the highest practical points you can obtain, which is why we don't really go ahead with a lot of high risk players. All our players are safe people who will end up getting you some points. And which is why, as Ajay rightly said, when you go in a mega league, you have to go with a different team, players who are not selected by a majority of people. Because if you end up selecting the same team as 15,000 other people, there's no way you're going to end up with the first position. You need to have someone different in your team.
Exactly, and I think so that different variation also, there's so many permutation combination, you can't give everything, and then again it will boil down to us that even these variations didn't work out. It is, as you said rightly, Avi, it is a total gamble to win mega league. It's not just your skill that will work over. So, moving to our next question, Ajay, since players have been out of form and venue is also different one, and we have been discussing that post means once few matches are over, at least 3 matches each team plays, it will give our model would be able to predict much better. So, how are we going to add those values over there? How are we going to add that those parameters or that data points so that prediction is on the recent form also?
Right. So if you think of, say, a bowler, he bowls 24 balls a match, so that's 72 balls if you consider 3 games. So if you think of 72 balls is not a huge data set, but it's a significant amount of data. Similarly, you will in 3 games, most batsmen would have faced at least 50 balls. So that's a significant amount of data for us to try and analyze what the person is doing right, what the person is doing wrong, and how that pans out for the future. So again, prediction is just based on data, and so someone, as Dhruv rightly pointed out, someone coming off 2 ducks can suddenly come and score big in one game. But a prediction model would generally suggest that if you've not done well twice and you've not done well historically, then you will not do well in the future. But if you've done really well historically, but your recent form isn't as good, that would mean that going forward, your performance will get better, will get to the standard at where you were playing. But so yeah, so it will be below your average. So if I am the player who scored 2 ducks, my prediction model would suggest that going forward in the next game, I would be performing below my average. Now what comes into the picture is that for someone like Chris Gale, below his average is still good enough for most teams. But for a player who's for some other player, that may not be the case. So things like that is what we will consider going forward. That the recent performance will hold weightage because after all, the data that we have right now is from a year back when things were significantly different. So this is the only data that can correctly tell you about how a player is right now, which is why it will hold some significant amount of.
Thanks. Thanks, Ajay. So, Dhruv, how this our current model, how it is accommodating players who are new and haven't been part of international cricket or don't have much stats on the IPL side as well.
Yeah, so for the new players like Ravi Bishnoi and you have, let's say, Yashasvi Jaiswal. So those kind of those players, uh, you kind of have their like India A or India under 19 stats available. So you use that with a lower weightage. So if international matches are given, let's say 80% weightage, then these games are given, let's say 50% weightage, just to try and get them to the same level. So adding those weightages will kind of level the field and also give them enough opportunity to be picked. And that also comes down to, so there are players like Varun Chakravarti that played in the last game. So their last IPL game, his last IPL game was against KKR, which was really bad. And yesterday's game was actually good for him. But because IPL games are given higher weightage, and if he's not done well in one game or two games, so that kind of affected his selection into the team. And those are the things that affect our 15 that's been picked. So you get a list of the top performers, and from there you pick the players. So yeah, so Varun Chakravarti didn't make the top 11 players and all of that, but Ravi Krishna usually does because of his under 19 stats.
Great. So, as people have asked previously, also just to sum up that we are taking into consideration new players under 19 stats also for whom we don't have any stats in IPL. It is not that we don't have any stats for such players. We are taking everything into uh, consideration and then moving ahead in any of our data driven insights that we are projecting over here. So guys, thank you all for this discussion. I think so we have covered most part of our models, how we are working on the data. Anything else you guys would like to add, Avi, Ajay, or Dhruv?
I just like to take up one
Yeah, I would
question.
like to
I
share.
think Nahan asked about Andre Russell and like how can we rate someone like him who is a massive performer but end up not getting selected, or not getting the chance to bat. So again, yesterday's game, we were not expecting a team like Hyderabad to end up at a mediocre total with just 4 wickets falling. So given the batting firepower they have at the top and the depth they have, we just assumed that they might stretch till 170, 180, and that's a situation where Russell might have come into bat at number 4. But now again, as I said, when the toss happens, and if I see a team like again Delhi Capitals playing first, batting first, and KKR is supposed to be chasing, that's a situation where I probably would not select Andrew Russell in the team because KKR might not be defending a huge total, and in that situation, Russell might not have the chance to play the sort of innings he does play. So again, it depends on whether you're chasing or whether you're setting up the score. Uh, and if you are setting up the score, I think if KKR batted first tomorrow, Russell would have definitely batted in the top 4. I think they're going to shuffle up the opening order anyway. Narayan doesn't seem to be doing a good job with opening. So these things do come into account. And given the fact that Russell has been bowling well, he's been picking up wickets. I think he's going to be a straightaway selection if KKR bats first.
Great. Thanks, Avi, for taking up that question. So, to our viewers, guys, floor is open for Q&A. Please keep posting your questions so that we can get it answered regarding models and everything. But before that, we would like to share predictions that we made in based on the scores. What is the score compared to the dream team? How our team has performed for the past 8 matches? So, Dhruv, would you like to go with that?
Wait, yeah, I'll just share my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you see it? Yeah.
Yes, it is visible.
So we had a few shockers in the one of the worst game that we had was when KKR played against Mumbai, where we just had four of our players in the dream team, and the difference the difference from the dream team was 266 points. And that was our worst game, and the second worst game was obviously day before yesterday's game. I think that was Delhi. I don't remember the game. Like Abhi Ajay, do you remember the game? Which game was
Delhi
the
was a
seventh game?
CSK.
Yeah,
I
Delhi
think
was.
this was a CSK.
Yeah, so that game was also not as expected. Uh, for like, and also the best game that we had the was the second game. I think that was Punjab versus. Wait, which game was that? Second game.
Yeah. So,
Uh,
Dhruv, I
just
think
a
so
second.
that yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So the second game. I don't remember the second. I'll just check it out. Yeah, so the second game was Delhi versus Punjab, and that game was really good for us. We had eight of our picked players in the dream team. So we had the average players that have featured in the dream team from the model is 5.6. We would obviously want to narrow that gap or like increase that to maybe a 7 on an average day and a 9 plus on a very good day. And the difference between our team and the dream team is 200 points. So that 200 points is something that usually comes down to luck, and also because we have not been consistently picking, let's say, a 7 or 8 player dream team, so that is also affected. So once we start consistently picking players like 7 to 8 players that are regularly featuring in the dream team, I think that difference will also be narrowed down. And as the games progress and we get more and more data, I think that can be done. And I think if Ajay and Avi has to have anything to add.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
I
our
just have
best
one thing to
game.
say that,
Yeah, go ahead,
yeah, I'll
Abhijit.
just like quickly finish my point. All I'm saying is that you can't really expect this model to any sort of model to perform really well, because then that would mean that the game has become very predictable. Then, to an extent, I'm happy that that hasn't turned out the way it has, because as long as the game is unpredictable, it's enjoyable, and that basically is how it's going to be. We need to push our predictions a little bit more. We have more data coming in because of this week. We have more players available. We have more practice with our top-notch foreign players coming into UAE now. So we expect this to come up to our average to go up to at least 6 or 7 players per match. But I think anything beyond that, on a great day, I think 8 or 9 players. But I think the game, given the game's unpredictable nature, it's always going to be topsy turvy. I mean, I'm not really personally, I'm not expecting the difference to really close down a lot, and I'll be happy if it doesn't. So yeah.
Yeah, the point I was just making was to reiterate Dhruv's point of our best game, if you see, is match four, where the difference between our team and the dream team was just 100 points, 112 points. And the players in that dream team, and we had 7 players in that squad who featured in the dream team. And if you look at the game with 8 players in the dream team, you will see that the difference is much higher. That simply boils down to your captain, vice captain selection. So yeah, we're just trying to tell you that how much of a factor luck plays in. So even if you pick the right player in your squad, sometimes just swapping so suppose you have the second best player as your captain and the best performing player of that day as your vice captain, even that can hamper your chances a little bit if you look at it from a mega league perspective. So if you see the second game, we had 8 players, but then the difference was closer to 200. But then in the fourth game, where we had 1 player less in the dream team, the difference was much lesser. So I just wanted to point that out to reiterate the points that we'd made earlier.
Yeah, thanks, Ajay. That really makes sense. And again, to reiterate the same point, we are just equipping our viewers to help them select which are the best players. It is not about captain or vice captain selection that we are making to data-driven approach. It is getting you the best players. Now, rest is the luck that plays role over here. So, how much luck is in your kitty, that will make you win any league or any contest over here. We are not giving you a complete way through that you are definitely going to win this league. We never made that commitment, and it is not also a commitment. Our commitment is to get you the best players out of 22 players, which will increase your chances to win a league. Guys, thank you. And as I mentioned earlier, for our viewers, post IPL, we would be launching a Kaggle competition for our viewers and community members who are actively following our channel and IPL predictions. In this competition, we would be aiming to complete EDA along with predictions on different parameters, of course. but there are free prerequisites to it. Like you should, of course, domain knowledge plays a very crucial role over here. So you should have domain knowledge, that is knowledge about cricket. You should have a good hands-on experience on Python, and clear, and along with that, a clear understanding about statistics and model used in data science. So that would be the prerequisites, and we would be floating around form to fill for you guys. So so that you guys can fill in and let us know what are your experience in Python and data science, and how's your domain knowledge. Accordingly, we can make a selection for the Kaggle competition. Anyhow, that's it from our side. So floor is open for the questions. I think so we have answered most of them. So, guys, Rajashekar says, can you guys talk about the ML model? So would you like to, all we have talked about that only, but would you like to just add on that what are the parameters on the stat side that we are considering? We, Ajay, or do anybody of you would like to take it up?
Dhruv, do you want to take this up?
Yeah. So we for the so we have a lot of parameters that we are considering. So some of them include how likely they are to score a 50 in the next game if they've scored 50s in, they've scored 50 in the previous game. That is one parameter, and then we have one more parameter where you try to see how frequently or how good they are in running between the wickets. So and those are like a few more parameters along those lines for batting. And for bowling, you have how frequently they take, like let's say 2 wickets or 3 wickets, or usually how frequently they take wickets. So because uh, Dream 11 doesn't really consider an economy rate or lower economy rate as good. Like your 1 second. Yeah, so I think you get 2 bonus points for an economy rate lower than 2, or let's say lower than 4 or 6. I don't remember, but that is a very small addition to that. So for bowling, it's just the wickets and how many wickets it's considered, or how many wickets a bowler has taken, and how frequently they take it. So those are some few things that we consider.
Thanks. So that's just a quick sneak peek about means for you, Rajshekar, that what are the stats that we are considering, what are the parameters that we are working across in our model. So definitely, since we have a Kaggle competition, we won't be able to share the model right now upfront, that what are the models we have used or how we are using these stats for the prediction. But yeah, we can let means as you've mentioned that these are few of the variables that we are considering. This depends on the statistics and the EDA that you can perform in the competition as well. So we have a question from Ramesh. Is it open source? So I believe Ramesh, you are asking about the data. Is it a open source data? Yes, for our model, we are taking a open source data. There's no paid data, but we have collected a rigorous data from different sources. It is not just one sources. We have collected data from rigorous from different sources, and also created or I would say derive different parameters based on that. It is not just the raw parameter, that is strike rate or average, we are feeding into our model. There is a lot of insight that is going behind that, a lot of math, I would say, is going behind that. That what parameter will make sense over here, how we can derive it, how it is leading a model, or how it is downsiding a model, and all that aspects are considered over here. So, any more questions, guys? So one question is more over there, but I think so we have answered this already. How to choose a youngster? Avi, would you like to take this up? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So we answered that. We are actually considering their under 19 or their domestic uh, performances, and based on that, we kind of give that a lower weightage, and based on that, we do that. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Thank you, guys. So this has been good retrospection of our model, and I am sure things are going to settle down as it is the initial phase of the tournament. I would like to thank all my viewers and entire team for being part of this. And again, just a call out: do catch us live and stay tuned to catch us live and stay tuned. And do like, share, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you all.